Hello Ride On people. So you join me on a very chilly kind of 32-ish degree day in late January, but it's going to be a little bit warmer this afternoon. I'm just walking around in my back garden, just trying to take in the morning before this afternoon when I get to ride one of my subscribers' Livewire. Join me for the ride. So, first ride on the Harley Davidson Livewire. Let's open it up a little bit. Alright, man, you can't beat that maximum torque at 0 revs, can you? Even in eco mode, which is what we're in at the moment. Now, I want to go immediately down this road because I know it's, you know, more bumpy, more rocky than a slap from Will Smith. I want to see what the ride's like because EV bikes, like cars, tend to be a little bit on the heavy side. So the suspension has a lot of work to do, and just slow it right down over these undulations. It's not bad, it's very firm, which is a good thing in my book. Very un-Harley like, very sporty like, and yeah, not bad. I think I could live with that. I'd sooner it be a little bit firm than too soft, but it's definitely on the firm side of things. If you're coming from a Harley Davidson, you'll think it's, you know, rock hard. If you're coming from Ducati, you'll think, oh, it's pretty nice. So that is what it is. There's a little park up here. I think I'll go in here and we'll just do a little walk around of the bike first. I think it would be good to have a little look at how this one looks. A lot of them are kind of sold in the orange, and this one is in the jet black. Now I'm not going to go into the specs right here, or the price. I'll probably do that at the end of the video in a little off-bike summary. I just wanted to get on it and just ride it as though I know nothing about this, and I've never ridden an electric bike. And I have ridden electric bikes in the past, typically Zeros, and the ZRFS, I think it is. It's probably the most impressive one and the most direct competition to this. Now, these used to be around the 30 grand mark, they're kind of around the 20 grand mark now, more. And I don't think the bike's going to trip the stoplights here, but we'll see. And so they're kind of pretty much on a par, and I would say off the top of my head, we're more looking at, you know, probably 80 to 100 miles of hard use. So it's not a touring bike, but in terms of a daily commute, particularly if you can charge at work, which my subscriber can, it's pretty freaking awesome, basically. You know, you've got no chains to worry about. This is shaft drive, belt drive. Belt drive, you know, there's pros and cons to belts and shafts, but belts are probably my favourite. You know, you've got the kind of more the lightness and power transfer that you get with a chain, but you don't have the weight and the power zappingness of a shaft. So I like Kevlar belts, and Harley have been doing them for a long time, and they work extremely well. Now let's just have a quick walk around this thing, this beast of beauty. That's pretty nice. What a black beauty. That's awesome. Very, very nice. I can say that rear shock is hard though. It's very, very firm. Kind of has to be for the weight. The weight compared with, say, my Tiger is... let's change the mode here, I think. Let's put it in road now. Press start. There we go. So yeah, the suspension has to be firm because of the weight. It doesn't feel heavy compared with most naked bikes. It's probably on a par. I would say seat of the pants, it probably feels like it weighs about 215 kilo. So that's what, about 500 pounds, something like that. Oh, road mode is nice. This thing is smooth, you know, effortlessly up to 60 in a blink of an eye. No gear changes, no lashing of clutches, no gnashing of gears. Just that seamless, smooth, creamy thrust, and in quite a characterful way. It sounds fairly nice if you like the sounds of electrics. I quite do. I think they sound a little bit like the subway station, really. You know, like a train on a subway or the tube if you're in London. But I quite like the sound. I don't think it's that bad. Now the brakes are okay. I thought the front brake was a little bit grabby, almost like the front disc on this particular one was slightly warped, but maybe that was just the first time I touched it. The rest of the time it's felt okay. I like the minimalist look, you know, small TFT and nice slightly raised bars, really nice knurled hand grips, and the switchgear is typical Harley, i.e. quite chunky, solid feeling. So that's quite nice. Gives an air of quality about that. And this is actually middle of the afternoon. You wouldn't believe the traffic here. We're a fair bit north of Atlanta, but we still seem to cop a lot of traffic, particularly Friday afternoons, which it is today. And we can but wait at these lights. And we're green. We're good. Now this would make a pretty good urban blaster. Let's deal with that first. I think, yeah, you've got no gears to worry about. I wish the bike had mirrors. It's clearly, I mean, you know, mirrors up here where you can see, because the ones beneath the bars here do obscure your view somewhat. But it's not horrific. I wonder if you can change modes on the fly. Let me see. It's just my tricky. I find it tricky to. I think you might have to stop the bike to change modes. I'm not sure about that. Let's pull over here a second if I can. Nothing behind me. Let's just change mode to sport. I think that's good now. Yeah, so let me change it without yeah, so let me change it without any bother. Let's just try a couple of twisties in sport then. It's a pretty chilly day, it's only about 50 degrees. Tyres aren't that warm. Yeah, nice. Not too bad. You feel the weight a little bit in the corners. You know, if you're off the throttle, it's a little bit crabby because of the weight. But if you're slow in, fast out, and you're a good line, you're on the right line. It's lovely. That power, that thrust, out of the corners is just so nice. Down to a stop here, but we're turning left so we can get out. Alright, very nice. Let's have another go at changing that mode if I can. So, rain, eco, road. Yeah, no, it's fine. In fact, it's pretty good actually, because it will just change the mode without having to roll off the throttle. So normally you have to do some phantasmagorical thing, don't you, when you're changing mode? You have to pull in the clutch and roll off the throttle and rub your head 3 times and roll up your pant leg. But no, Harley are treating you like an adult. They're just saying, let you select the mode, it flashes for a couple of seconds, and then you are in like Flint. Good job, Harley. Nice. Now this seat, not that wide, and I got quite a scrawny backside despite a big belly, and pretty thinly padded, so not that comfortable. And I suspect part of the reason they've done that is so they can have a reasonable over the seat height. I'm extremely flat footed, but then again I am built like a giraffe, so no problems for me. I'd imagine you'd be okay if you're about 5'7". Anything below that you might struggle a little bit, but 5'7" you should be good, because it's a very thin over the seat height and the padding in the seat isn't the best. Now I like the front end on this. The forks are quite well dampened and they're very solid, and the brakes are not bad. The overall geometry is good while you're on the gas on the right line. As I say, you will feel the weight when you're on the wrong line and off the gas on the overrun. And the rear shock is definitely a little on the firm side, but do you know what? I think if I got used to this bike and you're throwing it around with abandonment and you're razzing the power everywhere, I think you might want that extra firmness of it. You know, it might just be nice. And certainly, you know, once you get to cruising speeds around 60 miles an hour, it makes a lot more sense. The front end feels kind of perfect because you're going over perfections and you get just enough feedback that you can feel what that front end is doing, but it's not jarring and it's not too soft and squidgy. The rear is just a little bit over dampened. I don't know whether there's any adjustment on it, but it feels like it could do with I would say a little less compression, hell of a lot more rebound, and the preload's probably about right, I think. So I'm not sure the top speed on this thing, but let's go on the freeway anyway. And I think the top speed on this is probably going to be about 95, 100 maybe, but the key thing is it doesn't really matter because it's the speed it gets there, because this will get up to 60 as fast as any bike out there, and I do mean any bike. You're going to need something like you know, an M1000R with competition pack and lower gearing to accelerate this thing up to 60. It can just absolutely do it. Now, joining the freeway here. Let's do a little bit of a roll-on test. So 80 miles an hour, try and get to 100. But yeah, that was 110 pretty effortlessly and very stable. Let's roll it down. Unfortunately, the traffic is very light on the freeway today. We're all travelling at the same speed, so very easy to do that in that short distance. Roll on is effortless, and you know, you're going to get the usual wind blast, but it's actually not bad. It's not high buffeting, I would say. It's just wind pressure, and personally I usually prefer that over less wind pressure but more buffeting, you know. And as we just come into a bit of traffic again, I just want to thank my subscriber Ryan, who I've actually met before. He's somebody I know from the automotive industry, on the car side of things rather than bikes, but I know him and his father are passionate motorcyclists, and a couple of times I've said on my channel, you know, if you're within a reasonable distance of Roswell stroke Alpharetta type area in Georgia, and you have an interesting motorcycle you'd like me to ride and review for the channel, reach out to me. And that's exactly what he did. He reached out and said, hey Rich, guess what, I've got a Livewire, you know, that's not an everyday bike. I mean, it can be an everyday bike, but it's not a bike you see every day, put it that way, and would I like to ride it? And I said, sure, thank you for the offer, I'm very appreciative of that. And yeah, I'm really enjoying it so far, I have to say. It definitely makes you think about the possibilities. Now, if I was the sort of rider that just went out on dry days and did, you know, 50-60 miles on my own, or I popped down to my coffee shop or the local bar, or I had, you know, 20-30 mile commute every day and I wanted to ride, I think this kind of bike would be ideal in many ways. You know, it's very low maintenance, you've got no valves to adjust, you've got no oil to change, you've got no cam belts and timing and chains and all that nonsense. It's just basically a motor, a battery, and your main running costs, as usual, are, you know, your brakes and tyres. And there is some regen, and you notice that more in the eco mode. So I think that's actually probably what I was feeling at the start of the test, rather than kind of brake judder. You're just feeling that little bit of regen as it's putting a little bit more power back into the battery to extend your range and fun, which is a good thing. And that's usually tailorable per mode, and on this you actually have rider specific modes as well, and I didn't want to go into that just in case I pressed the wrong button and messed it up for my friend. But it's actually not bad, the regen aspect. It doesn't feel nowhere near as heavy as my my truck, my Rivian R1T for instance, in that respect. Now for somebody like me, I'm a bit of a different rider. I'm kind of passionate, kind of tourer, long ride out days kind of rider, and I will typically go out and do, you know, 250 miles. And when I do that, electric currently isn't really good enough, because irrelevant of the claims, the real world range just won't cut you to 250 miles. And you know, your gas riding friends are not going to want to stop while you charge up a couple of times for half an hour, depending on what charges you can find and the speeds that they can do. So it doesn't work for me personally. But there's been three problems with EV bikes that I've ridden in the past. The first one is weight, and I think now they are down to an acceptable weight. Are they super lithe and lightweight? Is it a street triple RS? No, it's not that. But it's much more kind of akin to, say, a 1200 speed triple, or a kind of chunkier muscle stroke naked bike like that. You know, the kind of 200, just over 200 kilo, you know, 500 pound type bikes. Now, in terms of price, I think they're kind of there again. We can argue the nuances of, exact spec and exact features, but you know, have you seen the price of bikes lately? You know, a Multistrada V4S out the door, you know, with panniers is 30 grand, and if you can get this kind of bike for about 20, I think it's pretty good value for money. Or a full-blown adventure electric or touring bike electric for 25 grand, I think that's fine. So I think price is no longer so much of an obstacle. I really think the only problem now really is range, because even charging is not really a problem, because if you talk to anybody with an electric vehicle, and soon my household will be purely electric cars, my wife's getting a Tesla and I have a Rivian, you'll know that range just isn't a problem for those vehicles, because you're, you know, and charging is because you're charging at home, and you can effectively start every day with a full tank before the off. So actually charging aspect at home, just not really an issue. And you know, I'm not sure I even know anybody who's driven their electric car more than 300 miles in one go. You know, you'll find them online, of course, you know, Kyle out spec and people like that, but in terms of your friends, no. Back in the real world, people ride, you know, drive 50, 100 miles or something, go home again. Just not an issue. But it comes back to range. Range is the key thing that they haven't sold yet for riders like me. But that's not to say it isn't sold for other riders. So my friend here has, you know, he has a number of bikes at his disposal, and he's using this predominantly for a bit of fun on short blasts and for commuting on dry days. And for that, yeah baby, freaking awesome. It's really ideal for that, you know. So nice. Very planted in the corner, very stable. But when you hit the big bumps, you do feel that weight and the suspension struggling to control the weight. So that's the area that Harley can most improve on in the future, is really looking at the weight of it, getting down a few pounds, and also a little bit better quality suspension. Perhaps moving away from, I suspect this is Honda shower equipment, and maybe moving to Öhlins. I mean, it's a cliche, it's a bit like everybody else, but you know, there's a reason why everybody uses Öhlins and Brembo Stylemma on their top bikes, right? It's because they work. That kit just works. So yeah, nice bike. I think if I owned one, I'd probably look to do a suspension upgrade at some point. But does it need it straight away? Absolutely not. I'd probably ride this thing around for a year or two or something, and then if I was still in love with it, I would then, you know, go to a tuning shop and have the suspension tweaked a bit. I think it would benefit, particularly if you are a sporty rider and you want to throw this around like a street fighter, if you like. Yeah. But in terms of the performance, yeah, it's got it. That torque is addictive. I mean, my bike has got good torque. It's a 150 horsepower bike, 1200cc, and it's got really good roll-on mid-range torque. It's tuned for mid-range, not top end. But yeah, this thing has got the torque. I mean, watch me squirt it. Effortless. 60. I mean, I'm really having to be careful with the throttle, because this will just fly. Very nice. That kind of acceleration is very similar and very punchy, in the same way that a Street Fighter V4S is. And having owned one of those, I can say that with some kind of degree of authority or experience. Not quite as violent and aggressive as that. It's actually kind of smoother and more linear. But actually that's a good thing, right? Because, you know, you have to be able to use the power. It's got to not scare you, but thrill you. And I think that's what Harley have done pretty well here. And this is great. I've got traffic light, so as long as I'm not going to disturb the traffic in terms of people having to brake hard or steer out my way. I can do a good 0 to 60 here, and you can count it back on the screen to see what it's like in terms of that performance. So let's see, and I'm in road mode at the moment, not sport. Well, that was pretty quick, wasn't it? 0 to 60. I doubt that took more than about 3 seconds. Very impressive. Highly enjoyable. So very kindly, person who's lent me this bike has said that I can, you know, ride it for 2 or 3 hours. Very generous, and I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to take too much advantage. I'm just going to keep this to a reasonable length, and I'm going to take it back. And let's run just for fun. Let's run through the Harley shop car park, even though this bike didn't come from there, and just see whether anybody looks, whether they're like, no, god damn it, it's one of those Japanese things, it's almost a rice burner, it's electric, I'll be dead before you get me on an electric. Nice vet. Pretty nice. Do a couple of figure of eights in the car park over here. Slow it right down a little bit. Not bad, not bad. Not bad. Keep your head up. Keep looking where you're going. Lock to lock. Not bad. Let's see if we can do full lock. Nearly full lock. Down to about 5 miles an hour. That's really not bad. You know, manoeuvring in the car park, really effortless. See whether we can get any kudo. Yes, we got the wave.
So it's Sunday afternoon now, and I'm just lounging around at home and just reflecting on the ride to give you a little summary at the end here. Just had a quick look at the website. I'll put the old spectacles on. I can see it's available in black, white, horizon white, nebula red, and it looked pretty good in black, but of course it's been rebranded Livewire now. So it actually has Livewire on the tank rather than Harley Davidson as we saw in the MkII Road. But essentially it's the same powertrain, it's the same shower suspension that I suspected it had, and the Brembo brakes, and connectivity wise it'll connect with your or Bluetooth with your iPhone or your Android, and that provides you with connectivity to TFT, including navigation, I believe. Not sure whether that is a subscription, but it has the ability at least. On a level 2 charger, that's 240 volt, you can charge 100% within an hour. On the old-fashioned 110 that we have here in the USA, you're looking at about 11 hours to charge to 100% on a level 1 charge, as they call that. But DC fast charging, like a J1772, that'll be 100% within an hour. So probably, yeah, I think that sounds reasonable. So they claim it has cornering, anti-lock brakes, and traction control, and that's really useful when you've got 100% torque at 0 revs. And in terms of range, they claim 146 in the city, 95 combined, and 70 highway. And I'd say that was about right. I would say you're going to be pushing it after 100 miles if you ride it the way I did in the test, for instance, which is fairly real world, you know, bar a quick burst of acceleration just to see what performance it had. So the electric motor produces 84 pound-per-feet of torque, which is quite a lot. There are bikes that produce more torque, but of course they're not producing them at 0 revs, and that is the beauty of this. Plus it's super smooth and you're not having to change gear, so you can make good use of that acceleration. Horsepower is about 100 horsepower, so ample up to 100 miles an hour, you know, as quick as anything out there basically. Lean angle 45 degrees, and you have integrated connectivity, as I mentioned. So that's kind of like the specs, and you can go out and buy one today. And in terms of cost, you're looking at today's date on the website says 22,799 plus your taxes and destination and out the door. So you're probably realistically looking, depending on what state you live in, about 25 grand out the door, which is not cheap. You can buy some kind of fast middleweight bikes considerably cheaper, such as a Street Triple RS if you want to have fun, or if you really want some torque, the Speed Triple is around that kind of price. But as I mentioned, performance and weight are kind of similar really to a big kind of muscular naked bike like a Speed Triple. And if you rarely go over 100 miles in terms of your distance, or you ride solo and you don't mind stopping for lunch and charging up while you're riding, then I think you can perfectly live with that. And particularly if you had like a sort of 30-40 mile commute and you just charged it up at home every night, it'll be perfectly good for that. I think on reflection of the ride, I enjoyed it immensely. I do like electric. I'm looking forward to when we're all on electric bikes, to be honest with you. I do think it's the future. Are there challenges? Yes. There's no magic wand. You're not going to reinvent the wheel over the night. But I think in terms of weight, we're just about there. In terms of about price, we're just about there. In terms of about charging speed, we're just about there if you've got the range. And I think the big tick in the box for most people, as it is on the car side of things, is probably around 300 miles. Once they get the range up to that kind of mileage, and it's difficult on a bike because of the packaging, then I think it's a no-brainer. You just want one. They just make so much more sense over a clanky old internal combustion engine that needs oil and has a kind of old school power plant in terms of needing valves adjusting and cam belts and God knows what, cam chains, filter changes and all that kind of nonsense. So I think it's definitely the future. Is the future here today? Very much depends on what type of rider you are and what you're going to use the bike for. I think if you're not worried by the range, what's not to like really? It's a bit like going for the car. If you've got a truck and you want to tow a U-Haul 4,000 miles across America, you probably want to hire a diesel truck or something like that. Or if you really want to do it in your own vehicle, you're going to have an internal combustion engine, probably just for the convenience of it. Not that you'll enjoy the fuel economy when it goes down to single figures, or the reduction in range either. It's just that refueling is that little bit more convenient than EV. But if you don't need that, it's a no-brainer. Talk to anybody who's got an electric car and ask them, do they ever get range anxiety? They never do. But that's typically because cars, do 250, 300 miles, EV cars, between charges. And with bikes, we're not quite there yet. But if the range doesn't bother you, buy with confidence. It's a good bike. The only thing I would say is that rear shock is junk. It really needs a far better shock. It is way too firm. Feels like a Ducati from the 90s, if you've ever ridden one of those. It's like a plank, really. It's not too bad on short distances, you know, if you're doing 20-30 miles or something, but if you're out on it all day, your backside's going to ache. So you may want to change your seat, but you definitely want to change your shock. That's where I would invest my money. I'd go and buy the most expensive Odeon shock that would fit and accommodate that, and have that, and probably live very happily after that. It's otherwise it's a, you know, it's a well developed good bike. I'd change the mirrors probably for my liking, but otherwise, you know, I think ergonomically it's comfortable, goes well, stops well, and of course that electric motor is just creamy smooth and full of torque, and we all like a bike that accelerates really smoothly and really fast, and the Livewire definitely does. Thanks for watching, hope you enjoyed the video. If you're new to my channel, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to like it, and copy a link to this video, share it with some friends who may be interested. See you soon.
Hey you, if you want to become one of the Ride On people, don't forget to subscribe. Ride often, ride carefully, ride on.